Let's mute you guys, and then we'll do questions at the end, okay?
Right.
All right, so the way I always start this out is kind of ask everybody who has dieted before, and usually everybody has, but it's been unsuccessful. When I say it's been unsuccessful, it means the results did not stick. Anybody can do these crash diets where they cut out carbohydrates and they cut all these calories and do all this crazy stuff, and then they lose. But what happens, and I'm going to explain that tonight, mess up the metabolism, they set their body up for storage, and they're really going down the wrong path, like a dead end. And they usually wind up weighing more at the end when it's all said and done than they were before they even started. That's what happened to Oprah throughout the years. She would diet, do the latest fad, lose, come back heavier, lose, come back heavier, because your body is just fighting against what you're doing. So I'll keep this pretty efficient for everybody tonight. As we go through this, keep an empty cup, like empty your mind out, because a lot of what I'm going to teach you goes against what you have been led to believe about nutrition. We're going to talk about stubborn fat, hormones, normal, typical North American diets, and different protocols you can do if you want to get started on fasting. So basically 5 problems with the typical North American diet, which is pretty much anything else that is out there from what I've studied and seen. You can't wait for it to be over, right? That if that's your feeling, then you're going down a wrong path because you're not forming a habit, right? Most people say, I'm doing a 30-day diet, I'm doing this and that. So that's one problem with your typical plan. Too restrictive. When you cut out whole food groups and you really go into this huge caloric deficit, and calories are your main energy source, and I'll explain that more in a little bit, it's way too restrictive. You feel like a lack of willpower because you can't stick exactly with the plan. Anything that is willpower based, solely willpower based, is anti-habit forming. So we don't want that. It's never a permanent change, and it's too complex and too confusing. I was very guilty of that when I started out creating programs for people that were way too complex and way too confusing that I thought were good for people, but you're going from, A to Z on that, and it's way too fast for people, and just there's not enough clarity. So the question you got to ask is, how do you make it simpler and fasting? So in this hospital bed here, that was my left knee, first patellar tendon rupture. I was on I don't know who's holding the phone, but somebody on my team's holding the phone. I'm talking to Devin. Knew I had a real bad injury. Thought that was going to be the end of a lot of my athletic days, but then I made a pledge to compete again. So up here, you see at that competition, there was 1 or 2 competitions I did in 2014, about a year, almost not quite 2 years after the fact. But the reason that's significant is when I was getting ready for this show, Devin had never seen me compete, and I wanted to be in the best shape as far as how lean I was that I ever was in before. So as I'm doing my readings, I come across stubborn fat patterns, right? So men have basically stubborn fat that is in their abdominal and low back typically. Women, it's typically the legs, glutes and thighs. And that could vary, but that's pretty much the pattern. And the stubborn fat cells are a different type of fat cell receptor. The reason they're stubborn is, I'll go over the stages of fat loss in a couple of slides, but you need to be able to get blood flow into the fat to get the fat out. Stubborn fat has a very, very poor blood supply. Stubborn fat cells. Pretty much the only way that you can increase blood flow to those areas is through fasting. So that's how I came about fasting. It was really just for cosmetic reasons to get ready for this show. And at the time, I went, everything was tracked. I would basically starve myself to get ready for these shows. But I went from eating 4 meals a day. And the only reason it was 4 meals and not more was because I was only eating 1,600 calories. That's what I was taught with how do you get ripped and lean and all this. And immediately I went to a 16-8 fast, cut it to 2 meals, same amount of food. And almost immediately it was much easier on my hunger levels and performance. And I was able to sustain the shape I was in for the rest of the summer, which was not a normal thing for me, just by following fasting. So I knew I was, was really onto something. Before that, when people brought up fasting, I told them it was a waste of time. You're going to lose muscle, all the stuff you hear, you're going to mess up your metabolism, all that stuff. So I won't go too deep into this, but everything that I've based fasting on and the protocols is based in mind map. Mind map is the science of how you form habits. So there's 12 steps to mind map. And basically you got to realize as Dana's taking you through this, she's your coach. There's got to be a level of trust formed, right? And then trust is going to lead to step 12. Let's say you achieve what you set out to achieve. You're probably going to pick a new target, maybe in this, with health and fitness, or maybe performance, or maybe something else in your life. But what happens is you start back over, right? You reach a new level of growth and you start back over with something new. And then you start all over again. So mind map, it's a pretty cool thing. One of the things I tell people they got to figure out when they're doing something like the fasting or the Panda, or you just want to make it a true transformation, you got to figure out why you're doing it. For example, one of the clients that I had tonight, Orlando, who some of you might know, we were talking, and I said, because he's had a lot of stress lately, so he's been kind of not as consistent as he would like to be. And I said, we got to remember when you started last February, why did you start? And he said, oh yeah, I want to look better. I said, that's not what it is. I said, why did you start? You told me why you started. He goes, yeah, I just wanted to. I said, no, what was it? He called me because a friend of his, same age, died suddenly, and it scared him. And I said, that's why you started. You got to remember, this is not about how you look, Orlando. That's just a side effect. My point with telling you that is you got to remember what your driver is. We call that the 5, 6, 7. Figure out why you're doing this, right? If it's just to lose 10 pounds, you got to say, why do I want to lose 10 pounds? Why do I want to do that? Blah, blah, blah. Go on to questions 5, 6, and 7 and really figure out why you're doing that, why you're doing what you're doing. Remember that it is your mind that creates the diet, right? And your mind also creates your reality. So it's always a choice what you're doing. It's always a choice. Remember that, because that gives you freedom. As soon as you remember it's a choice, and I'll tell you, for example, it's been a couple of weeks since I've done a 48-hour fast because I was doing the cleanse. Last week I took a break from doing a 48-hour fast. So that's typically what I do to start the week out, because I wanted to kind of get some more nutrients back into my body. But today, when I'm going through it, Devin was going to make this new meal. She said, I said, well, I'm not going to eat tonight because I'm fasting. But it's easy to start saying, I don't really feel like doing this. But then as soon as I remember this is a choice and I like doing it, like I like having that option in the mental part. But as soon as you realize it's a choice, your brain backs off, right? You're not pressured into doing it. So just remember it's a choice, whatever you're doing. You can stop at any moment. Some psychology of diet strategy. A lot of people come to this, when they start to diet with, I want to, right? And that's what I call the infantile ego. I want to lose. It doesn't really matter if you want to. Then you have the I have to. So this is the rebellion mindset. This is your spouse, your husband, whatever, your wife, they want you to lose weight. We have, there was a guy at the Flemington gym who I think had tried 3 different times unsuccessfully to really get started with the fitness program because his doctor, who's a member of ours, kept telling him, you have to start training. You have to do something. So he was doing it out of, I have to, right? It wasn't that he wanted to, it was the doctor was telling him he had to. Where you want to be is the I will mindset. That's what we call the achievement mindset or the champions mindset. I will. Once you say, I will do this, right? You take back the power. Okay. You take back the power. So that's another thing just to keep in mind. Keys to success before I get into some of the fasting things. Your choice, right? It's you choose to diet. And I call it diet if this is something you choose to do just because people are familiar with that term. but don't think of this as a diet that has a defined start and end date and a diet that is restrictive. Appreciate your feasting and fasting and your flex meals, your cheat meals, right? But don't think that you get them. You know, you got to earn those type of things. You got to put in the work. And it's not really about what you're doing, it's about who you're being. And that goes back to the I will mindset. So 3 phases of fat loss. And I think it's important that either way, whatever type of eating plan you choose, that you kind of understand some of this stuff, because once you understand it, you start connecting the dots, and then you can make it something that is going to stick for the rest of your life. And the principles is what we're really talking about. So you have 3 phases: mobilization. Okay, so you got to mobilize the fat stores, transport them to the working muscles, and then use them as energy. That's how fat loss happens. Remember, the first part I was telling you is you have stubborn fat areas. If you can't get the blood in, you can't even start the whole fat loss process. So that is a key thing. Fasting increases blood flow to stubborn fat areas. Let's talk a little bit about what this does hormonally for you, because a lot of people want to, again, cut calories, do this type of thing, cut out carbohydrates. What they're really trying to do, if they understood a little more, is they're trying to affect the hormones. It's all about the hormones when you're trying to change your body. So insulin is the master, one of the master hormones of the body. It is the most anabolic, and what that means is growth hormone in the body. Okay, so it's the most anabolic hormone that we can control. Insulin is largely produced when we eat. Yeah, a little bit can be produced if you're thinking about food and whatnot, but that is the one hormone that you really have control over. If insulin is raised, it doesn't matter how much of a deficit you're in, if you're still of that mindset, you will not lose weight. It is impossible, because insulin signals your body to store, whether that's in your muscles or fat cells. It says store, okay? Then you have cortisol, which for our purposes is kind of the opposing hormone almost of, in some ways, of insulin. Cortisol is your main stress hormone. When I say stress hormone, it's really just an alertness hormone. Cortisol should be rising when we wake up in the morning. That's really the hormone that should wake us up in the morning. And the reason it does that, if you look at how the brain and the body evolved, it was you wake up and you have to gather your bearings. You have to see, is everybody safe? Like, think about people that before houses existed, before like homes, right? And they're traveling in packs. You had to wake up, gather your bearings, everybody's safe. Where am I going to get food for my family today? All this stuff. So you needed to be very alert. So we want cortisol to be elevated in the morning. Now, most people eat a typical American breakfast shortly after waking up. Once you eat, insulin goes up. Guess what happens? Cortisol comes back down within an hour or 2. So a lot of people will eat a typical breakfast and they'll be hungry shortly thereafter or tired. Not a good combination. Now, if we allow cortisol to continue to rise, meaning we didn't eat, what happens is growth hormone starts to rise as well. So when you start getting into longer periods without eating, you're getting this nice bump of growth hormone. Growth hormone is the hormone of youth. It is one of the main, it's a very effective hormone for fat loss, right? So those are kind of some of the main hormones. Now, I talked about the opposite of insulin. It's not really cortisol. There is, hold on, somebody's joining here. There's another hormone. So a lot of people, when they begin fasting, get nervous that their blood sugar, they're going to get hypoglycemic. Okay, their blood sugar is going to be too low. Insulin's role when you eat is to clear nutrients and blood sugar out of the bloodstream, right? So insulin is there to keep blood sugar from hopefully going too high. Now you have another hormone called glucagon, and you don't have to remember any of this, but just realize when blood sugar starts dropping, meaning you haven't eaten for a while and you're active, glucagon is going to kick in and keep it from going too low. Symptoms of it, that's a different thing we'll talk about. but glucagon will kick in, and it's not going to let your blood sugar go below a certain point. And glucagon has to be elevated if you want to lose weight. Okay, insulin has to be low, glucagon has to be elevated. Talk about a couple other things with fasting. A common concern that I hear is that, I need to be able to function. How am I going to go 20 hours without eating? So first, we're going to go over in a slide or two that food is a drug. So just remember that for a second. But brain function, when you actually get into it, should actually be very much elevated. And cortisol is up, adrenaline is up, growth hormone is up. We're not getting this insulin crash after eating, right? That makes us tired and sluggish. So brain function will actually improve when you are fasting. Digestion should improve. Most people are eating way too often. It takes about 6 hours after you eat a meal to enter a fasted state again. So most people are constantly just in a fed state. That's a lot of strain and a lot of inflammation on your gut and GI tract. So we want to see digestion improve. We do that largely by what we're eating and stress levels, but also giving the gut a break. But autophagy is something that you won't hear talked about too much. But when you start getting into like a 1 meal a day, or if you do a longer fast, like a 2-day fast periodically, you get something called autophagy. What that is your body will go in and literally eat up damaged parts of cells, mutated parts of cells. It'll either recycle them or get rid of them. So it's a cleansing mechanism, but you can't get autophagy in the presence of food. And again, you have to go at least to like a 1 meal a day program to start getting that benefit. So there's tons of health benefits with fasting. So let's talk about normal dieting, because this is the background that a lot of you have probably come from. So basal metabolic rate. So everybody hears a lot about metabolism. It's largely what you're born with. You're not going to change it dramatically, but realize that it's really just a sum total of all the energy your body needs for chemical reactions. Okay, usable energy we're looking at. How much does it cost to run your body if we're looking at it as an expense? But your metabolic rate, usually for women, late 20s, it's going to take a downturn, mid 30s, early 40s. For men, it's like five years after that, 10 years after that. But it will slow down multiple times a day, but it's not when you're fasting. I'll explain that. Your metabolism, however, has the capacity to upregulate or downregulate 40%. So if you cut, like, think of a typical diet when you cut your calories drastically. Let's say to make it real simple math, right? Let's say you have a basal metabolic rate of 2,000 calories a day, right? And that's something that Dana could show you on the in-body sheets if you're doing this in Hillsborough. I think the Flemington one has it as well. It'll tell you your BMR. But when you cut calories initially, it might work for a couple of weeks. Then what happens? Your metabolism lowers to match what you're putting in. Then you cut again. Then the metabolism lowers again. Now there's a floor, right? You can't go past a certain point when food and calories coming in from the external is your main energy source. There's a certain floor you can't go below, right? You're just not going to have energy. So at that point, you decide, okay, I'm going to go back to eating normal amounts of food. And you don't really decide, your brain tells you, because you've been starving yourself. You go back to eating normal amounts of food, but your metabolism's down here. All this excess is going to get stored as fat, right? So we don't want that. Traditional model of dieting, metabolism lowers. So we talked about that. Hunger hormones are going to go up. So this is a losing proposition. It's what I did when I was competing in bodybuilding for years. I don't care how strong your willpower is, it's not going to work. Not going to work. Most people still buy into like the simultaneous model of weight loss, which is, let me cut calories here, burn calories here, and then I will lose weight. It's not how it happens. There's a sequential model. Again, we got to look at the body. Don't even worry about workouts when I'm speaking about this. And the analogy I use is, if you had fridge, let's say the fridge up in your kitchen, and then you got a couple box freezers down in your basement. The box freezers in this analogy represent your body fat that you want to lose. The problem is you have to have a reason to go down there and start taking stuff out of those freezers, your body fat or whatever stored frozen food you have in there. But you have to have a reason to go get it, meaning the fridge upstairs has to be empty. Okay. So we do that by not opening that often. So I want you to equate the fridge upstairs. Every time that door opens and the light goes on, that's a release of insulin. Okay. So we want to limit how often that light goes on. And we want to start draining some of what's called, the storage stuff in our muscles and liver. Once we start, and that storage stuff is called glycogen. Again, you don't have to remember all this, but realize that's okay. I need to tap into my body fat stores. So, and I think on the next slide, I have it. The body fat that we all have is an energy source. It's not the only reason, but it's the main reason we have extra body fat is as a fuel source. So if you do some math on this, if you just had 10 pounds of fat that you wanted to lose, which isn't that much, right? When you compare it to the norm, to the average that's out there. Let's say you had 10 pounds of fat you want to lose. Each pound of fat stores 3,500 calories. So that's 35,000 calories in that 10 pounds that you need to give your body a reason to tap into for energy to lose. 35,000. That's a lot of energy. You could go literally for weeks without eating and you'd be absolutely fine, right? Goes against what all the mainstream has taught. So anyway, you got to get to those freezers in the basement. So why have we been taught this? Because I think that's important to understand. There's a very big, and I used to be I'm very far from, I feel like I'm just scratching the surface on this stuff. By no means do I know everything. I'm not saying that, but there's a big lack of expertise out there when it comes to nutrition. Because even in school, like when I was going to school for this stuff, they teach you calories in, calories out, blah, 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 all this stuff. Right. It makes sense on paper, but it does not apply to the real world. So lack of expertise, marketing, you got to think of like the food industry is a huge industry. The more often you eat, right? The more often you eat, the more money they make. And you have all these what I call pseudoscientific nutrition programs. You got to do 5 shakes a day. You got to do all this type of crazy stuff. Okay. So not good. And it puts the blame on you. So this is where I used to be, right, as a strength coach and practitioner with nutritional stuff. When I would write these plans for people when I first started, and it would be exact how much this, how many ounces, how many cups, grams, blah, blah, blah. And 9 out of 10 people, it wouldn't work. And what I would say is, oh, they're lying. They're not following it. So now it's on them. I can't really help them. Right. And think about doctors, right? Well, just limit this and do this. And you come back and you've been doing it and it doesn't work. Well, in their mind, it's on you. It's no longer my problem. I told you what we need. So those are the reasons where we've been taught to diet that way. Misconceptions. Starvation mode. You do not enter starvation mode when you fast. Okay. You enter starvation mode when you're cutting your calories. So I already told you, metabolism will lower, hunger hormones will go up in that scenario. When you fast, let me see if I have it on the next slide. When you fast, your metabolism actually goes up anywhere between 5 and 14%. And I'm talking about when you're doing like 1 meal a day type of program. Metabolism actually goes up and hunger hormones come down over time. So it has the exact opposite effect than the typical diet. Muscle loss. If I'm going to lose all my muscle, that's not going to happen. Growth hormone goes up 2,000 to 3,000%. 2,000 to 3,000% when you start crossing that 1 meal a day or start hitting that consistently, and you get into 48-hour fast and whatnot. And it sounds a lot harder than it is, but you get into that. Growth hormone, which is very great at preserving muscle. There's another hormone that's a precursor to testosterone that goes up about 67%. And that's when they've had people fast for 5 days. So it's very, very muscle preserving. And the reason is you go back to how we evolved, right? Let's say you're out there hunting food, right? And your tribe has not eaten for 3-4 days. So the very survival of you and your tribe depends on your ability to go out and get food. If you were going to lose muscle that quickly, the very thing that would help you gather the food and your brain function, right? If that was going to go in the tank, it goes against survival. So those things would get heightened. Muscle would preserve. You can actually use this style of eating to put on muscle easier as well. And misconceptions about frequent feedings of breakfast. We've heard that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. It is not. That's a complete marketing thing. If you just go by the hormones, which I explained earlier, you don't want to eat a typical breakfast. Do it as a treat here and there, but you want to wake up, let the stomach be empty for a while. And frequent feedings that are going to speed up your metabolism. There's no research that shows that at all. That's a marketing thing. And I can tell you, the more often you eat, the more you're going to mess with your hunger hormones. And a lot of people confuse that with the faster metabolism. I'm getting hungry more often. Not a good thing. Not a good thing. You got to remember that. So a couple of reframes, right? Working on your mindset with this. Your body fat, as I already said, is a fuel source. If you feel a little bit hungry, especially when you're first starting, that's what fat loss feels like. But realize that you have a lot, and I'm not saying you specifically, everybody's got a lot of body fat that can be used as food on their body. Give the body a reason to do it. You might be uncomfortable the first couple of days as your hunger hormones adjust, but you got to reframe it. And then realize that food is a drug. Okay, the fat of your body. That is the literal definition of a drug. So food is a drug. So if you first start fasting, you're probably going to get for a day or two. It's not long. All the time I've been teaching people about fasting, it's never a prolonged thing. You might get withdrawal symptoms because, again, it is a drug. You might get a headache. You might get whatever, but it's not going to last. That is a withdrawal symptom. Roadblocks that you're going to hit, the hunger pangs. So hunger pangs and what we call food entrainment. Let's say you've been eating 3 square meals a day for your whole life. When you first start this, let's say you went to 1 meal a day, or you went to a 4-hour window. You're still going to get those hunger signals at the times you've gotten them your whole life. And over time, they're going to diminish. When you get those hunger pangs, a lot of people say, oh, I have to eat. I'm getting hungry. Again, reframe. You're getting hungry. That just use that to signal that, hey, I'm starting to tap into my body fat. Something good is going on here. Now, I don't think I have this in one of the slides, but I want to mention it. If you're getting poor sleep or you had a bad night's sleep, it completely messes up everything as far as your hunger hormones and all that stuff. You make the job of sticking with your plan much more difficult. Okay. Other people are going to tell you this is terrible for you. They don't understand it. They've never done it. I can guarantee that. They're going to tell you that you're going to go into starvation mode and it's not healthy. Meanwhile, fasting is, besides sleep, in my opinion, it's the healthiest thing you can do for your body. The juice. So if you're going to fast, we recommend putting certain things in your water, which would be these 3 things. You like colored sea salt, which is your sodium. Low salt or new salt, that's just a brand. That's your potassium. And baking soda is another form of sodium. Very good for your kidneys, very good at making the body more alkaline. So these are really your main electrolytes. You put them in your water. So we recommend 32 to 40 ounces. Start with a 1/4 teaspoon of each. Then you can up it over time to a 1/2 teaspoon of each. It does a lot of cool things in your body. It helps with making you more insulin sensitive. So that's what we want with fasting as well. It hits satiety centers in your brain. So feelings of fullness, right? A lot of times your brain is really just seeking out nutrients like this. Reduces inflammation. So it does a lot of great things. And if you're doing this in your fasting, you can work out and have at it because these are the things you need for muscle contraction, right? And to perform. So the meal structure, if you're going to, I'm basing this, let's say, off of a 1 meal a day type of plan. So, I'm happy to help you ladies however you want with this. And I'll talk with Dana, see whatever you guys need. But the way I like to break the meal down is do fruit first. So have a nice serving of fruit, whatever you want, would be at the beginning of the meal. It's digested further down in the small intestine. So we want to get it through the system first. It has a ton of micronutrients. Fruit is pretty much all types of fruit. Get them organic if you can, but that's a nutritional superstar. So many micronutrients, got a very good energy coming from that. Other thing, once you put it in, it's got a lot of volume fruit, but it doesn't have a lot of density. So when it goes through your stomach has stretch receptors. So it starts to stretch, right? And that starts signaling your brain too that, hey, I got enough coming in. Let me eat nice and slow, right? Because a lot of people, their concern is, I'm going to overeat if I do one meal. You will not, you cannot overeat once you get into a rhythm with this. Trust me, because I've tried and I have a huge appetite. You can't overeat doing this. The main meal. One of the main things that I like people to focus on is get a lot of stuff on your plate that came from the ground. Okay, get a lot of stuff that came from the ground. If it grew from the ground, you're not going to go wrong with it. Yes, and that means there's a lot of carbohydrate sources there. Potatoes is the food that will keep you full the longest out of any food there is. They've done studies on this. Whatever potato you like, sweet potatoes, white potatoes, do veggies, rice, beans, all good stuff. Okay, if you want to have your animal source, animal protein, that's when you would have it as well. And then Dana could share with you like an overnight oats recipe. That's what I'll do like during the week as my dessert, right? I'll put some frozen blueberries with it. I usually make it in the morning. I don't actually make it the night before. So if you're still hungry after you eat, boom, you have that. Maybe throw some nuts in there and it's really good. So that is what I have for fasting. So Dana, you said you had some questions.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Kyle. That was awesome.
Welcome.
Yeah, there was one question that I received tonight for someone who is stopping their last meal at 5 p.m. the night before, but they're a morning workout person. So they're coming in to work out at 9 a.m. Her question was, how am I going to have the energy to do that? And I think maybe you touched on that in terms of the juice, but just explaining that, how that would impact them if they, were worried that they wouldn't have the energy to come in and do a workout, being in the fasted state or not having ate for that long.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a juice, you're going to be fine. And you want to get into that consistently. And then people, like a lot of people think their energy comes from eating right away. When you eat a meal, let's say, especially if you're working out early in the morning, there's a couple levels to this. When you eat, digestion actually takes a lot of energy. So it's actually taking usable energy away from you, right? And now you got to think too, working out and digestion are two different parts of your nervous system, right? So a lot of people think they need to eat around a workout. You're putting food into the gut. You need to be in what's called a parasympathetic state to digest, which is relax, digest, go slow. To work out, you got to be in the sympathetic, which is fight, flight, or freeze. So you don't really want to mix those things. Energy will be fine. Do the juice, right? Muscle contraction, muscle performance, and realize that your body fat is going to fuel your workout. I mean, that's ultimately what we're trying to do. You get consistent with that over time. So it's a common concern, but I haven't seen that actually happen yet.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I was thinking about that last year for like when I was deadlifting for the competition in December. And every week when we were where we were meeting to do the deadlifts, it was typically around 11 a.m. So I was always fasted. So for the competition, I'm like, well, I'm just going to do it fasted. Like I'm fine. And I actually had found that, and I wasn't sure if this was the case, but felt like my body needed to use energy, because if I tried to eat something before, and it would kind of take away from what I was trying to do performance wise. So I ended up lifting, 415 pounds, and that was on just water, and I had coffee, and I felt great doing it. But that, that definitely makes sense. All right, I'm going to go to this will be my last question, and then I'll let Maritza and Joanne, if they have any questions. This was posted on the page from Linda Peterson. Question regarding fasting. Is gum or mints okay when fasting, or is there any suggestions of what to supplement for gum or mints?
Is she is she using it as like a breath freshener, or like as far as a supplement? Did she clarify that, or is she talking about like just to
No, I mean, I guess
maybe?
I don't know if it's something just to, I don't know if it's something she's using to,
Kind of
I'm not
bridge the
quite
gap,
sure.
maybe.
Yeah, kind of bridge a gap for, instead of having something to eat,
You
substituting
could,
gum in place of it.
yeah, you could. I mean, me and you have talked a lot before, like chewing gum, guys, and again, I do it sometimes. It's not, but it's not a good habit, right? Because you're almost tricking your digestive system. Because when you start chewing, that it really starts when you look at it. You are there's nothing actually coming in now, right? And a lot of people they're inhaling a lot of air when they're chewing gum and all that. So if it's bridging a gap, like if now theoretically it would you wouldn't be in a fast state, but from what I've seen, you'll be fine. If it was just bridging a gap to when you actually get to eat, I would do stuff like chicken stock. You could do pickles. Okay, pickles are basically the juice. It's basically the juice. But if you needed to get something in, or you wanted to attempt to do a 48-hour fast, or even people go longer than that, and you just needed to have some, I would do like chicken stock or pickles, and you'll be fine. And you got tons of nutrients in those. Again, theoretically, you're not in a you took some in, but it's not gonna really mess you up too much.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi.
What's up, Maritza?
Like my friends in the background?
See him back there.
Those are my coworkers.
Right.
I just wanted you, if you could, give us some rules around caffeine.
Okay. Well, one of the main things I look at with caffeine is if you need it, right? That's not a good thing. Because then we got to look at sleep and what's actually going on there. You got a visitor right there. What's up, buddy?
Sorry, Joanne.
I heard these voices in the background.
What's going on, dude? How you doing?
All right. How are you?
Good,
Bye.
buddy.
All right. I will leave you guys alone. Excuse me.
All
I'll
good.
see you soon, I'm sure.
Yep. So caffeine, the coffee actually has a lot of health benefits, right? But if you're going to do it, I would like to do it when it kind of concurs with the other hormones, right? Like in the morning when cortisol and adrenaline are trying to rise. That's really what people are trying to do with caffeine is get that feeling. But I think what you'll see, because you've been dabbling with fasting, right, Maritza?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So you should notice like the energy. You'll just have this nice energy all the time, most of the time. I mean, it could bad night's sleep happens, whatever. So you won't actually have the need for it as far as that stimulant energy.
Right.
That's okay. And that's something like in the fasting period, we do that juice drink. You could do black coffee. Now, if you've been fasting for a while and you want to add stuff to it, that's fine. I usually like people to go a couple weeks with just black coffee, kind of get we really want people to really activate their taste buds again and give their taste buds a good break each day. But again, looking at habit formation, if that's something you really like and it makes you happier, then do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just concerned because, we've been doing that BCAA for a while. And in the morning, we do the one with the boost. And, Jeff and I Jeff in particular, because he's never really done caffeine. I've done caffeine since I'm a kid, the old grandma putting the caffeine in the bottle. Yeah. So I was just curious, how does that affect what we're trying to do here? If I'm only having it in the morning and I'm only having it in that drink, then great. Because that's
you're
really
fine.
what I do.
Yeah, you're fine. Caffeine is actually a very good, it loses its effect like any drug, right?
Right.
It's actually very, very good at helping mobilize that first step of fat loss, mobilize fat stores.
Yeah. And the juice, totally helps with the feeling of satiety, being full.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I tried it last week, and I was actually able to do my first purposeful 24.
Nice
fast.
job.
Yeah,
Nice.
so it was good. Yeah, it worked well.
Yeah, that's all. It does make a big difference.
It really did. I was shocked.
Yeah, you'll know, because I'll ask people, when they're struggling, I say, "Are you doing the juice?" No, I didn't think it was that important. I'm like, no, there's a reason for it,
I mean, it takes a minute to get used to, but
Yeah.
I
Once you
put
do it,
lemon juice in it. I hope that was okay, because I was
That's
like, I
fine.
got it down this somehow.
yeah, totally fine.
Cool.
Good stuff.
My question on coffee is I really enjoy just having something hot in the morning. What
Yeah.
else can I have instead then?
You could have
It's
tea.
not, you can have tea.
Yeah, you could do
black
you could do
tea.
Yeah, you could do tea. You could do coffee. You could actually do, like, I'll do sometimes. Boiled water is actually very good at. I won't go into all the science before, but if you do
Yeah.
hot water, just straight hot water, it's very good at helping the body detoxify too. So if you just want something hot, you could just boil water.
But I mean, can't put anything in it. That's
So
the
you-
problem, I guess.
Well, it's not. So that's what I like to tell people is go like, what you've been fasting, right?
Except I tried not to have a cup of coffee till like 10:30, but that's the only thing I've had is the coffee. I can fast 16 hours.
Okay.
And then for lunch, I have a yogurt and some fruit, and then I don't eat again until dinner.
Okay.
It's the coffee. What I put in it, I don't know. I like to have.
So I would start. I would go a week, Joanne, with just having black coffee.
Black coffee.
Tea or black coffee. Yeah, it sounds, but people get used to it pretty quick.
Yeah.
And once you do that, then if you want to put some splash of cream in there or whatever, because we're looking at habits ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at habits. If we say you can never have coffee again with,
not,
and that kind of annoys you, then you're gonna like, oh, well, am I gonna do the whole thing? So again, look at habits. What's gonna get you? You don't have to be perfect with all this stuff. We're just gonna present the information, and but I would try to go a week, or you might say, okay, Tuesday I'm going black coffee, and the rest of the week maybe I'm doing my cream and whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I started at the last time we did the fat shredder is not to have it until after lunch. Like I try to have it after lunch because I just had the yogurt and the I know you're not supposed to have dairy, but the yogurt and the fruit. I have a lot of fruit at lunch, like a quarter cantaloupe, an apple, and grapes and things like that. And
Nice.
that's it,
Good.
But and I'm not hungry, and I come to class with an empty stomach, which is, I can't imagine ever eating before class. That would be horrible.
Yeah.
And as often I just finished dinner now. I'm fine with going to bed with a full stomach, and I get 7 to 8 hours every night. Definitely. Always.
That's perfect.
But I gotta try just to not have something in the mornings, the coffee with cream.
Or try tea this week or something.
Try what this week?
Try tea.
Tea.
There's a lot of good teas out there. You could try different flavors.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay.
All right.
Yep. But I also have to try doing at least a 24-hour fast. I've never done that.
Yeah.
I never drank the juice either, so I do have to try that too.
With the juice, and I'll tell you, if you haven't had experience with it, if you do, you can start at a quarter teaspoon of each of those. Dana will post that up there for you guys. Or a half. Now, if you do too much, the only thing that's going to really happen is you might get diarrhea. I'm just telling you that.
Okay. Okay.
Introduce it into the body.
Okay.
So start on the lower.
What about an eighth of a teaspoon?
You can start there if you want.
To see.
Start there.
And then how many ounces? 40 ounces?
Yeah, 32 to 40 ounces.
30.
Those measurements would be for. Start
Okay.
with one a day, and then you get up at two a day, and then eventually, once you get used to it, usually people don't go back to drinking regular water.
Really?
Sounds strange, but that's 95% of the people. They get
Mhm.
at first it tastes weird, and then they get into it, and they just because again, the body, sodium is so critical for the
Yeah.
body, and most people are very.
So you got to
deficient
have
in that.
all three of those things, huh? Mixed in
Yeah,
there.
if you were only gonna pick one, I would pick the sea salt. But I like to do
Mm.
all three. But if you're only gonna pick one, I would do the sea salt.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then in the group too, I'm sure there's other women that maybe the fasting might be new to them. You use Dana and use the power of the group. Say, hey guys, maybe this week we'll all try a 24-hour fast or one meal, on this day. Use it. That's powerful when you're doing it with the group.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I like that.
Good.
Kyle, I have a question. This was asked to me on a call. I forget who it was with, one of the women. She's been doing the fasting. She said she finds that when she's coming off of a 24-hour or a 48-hour where it's extended, especially around the time of her period, she says that she will find herself binging. So she'll restrict, and because she's doing the fast, and then when she breaks it, she finds like she'll eat something and then she'll have cravings and kind of go back salty, sweet, and was curious, how do you manage that?
So a couple of things with that is she like at the rest of the week, is she still doing like a one meal a day?
Yeah, she's doing the one meal a day.
So is the main thing you guys got to remember is the fasting time is the most important thing. As long as you're hitting that fasting time, that's number one. The second thing with that is the fruit first is big, right? So if you do the fruit first, right? Because a lot of times if we're binging and whatnot, I would look at, she said maybe during her time of the month,
Yeah.
there's something hormonal going on. And usually that could be a sleep thing, right? Like you can experiment. If you get a bad night's sleep, just watch how your hunger is the next day. Like it's way more hard, difficult to manage. And remind her that if you're following a one meal a day, it is very, very hard. You're not going to overeat. So don't stress it, right? Just be mindful. Right. And then it'll take care of itself. And if she's craving salts and all that, your brain's, ladies, is also, it's going to seek out nutrients that you're deficient in. Right. So a lot of times when you focus on not the macronutrients, as far as like we really used to focus how many grams of carbs and protein and fat, think about the micronutrients. What is the food giving you, like as far as okay, like stuff like zinc and what vitamins are in it? That's really what your body needs, is the micronutrients. And so cravings a lot of times is just disguised. She's probably deficient in sodium, because a lot of times when we're craving sweets, it's really a sodium deficiency. So you start getting that stuff up and get a lot of fruits in, but yeah, you're not,
Okay.
she ain't really gonna overeat in one meal a day.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome. What else we got? Any other questions? Everybody good?
What about alcohol?
So you use it as, are you talking about, like, I always tell people, if you're talking about like a 6-pack a night, then that's an issue.
No. A weekend,
Totally fine. Yeah.
I don't know, Joanne.
You need to join a different club if you're at a
Yeah.
6-pack a night.
Different 12-step program. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's totally fine. Because again, you got to go back to, this is to make it, to enhance your life. It's not to take away stuff that you enjoy.
Right.
Right. So on the weekends, I have beers. I enjoy them.
Mhm.
It's you'll know when you overdo it, but but center all this stuff around what do you enjoy doing, and how could you continue to make that enjoyable, right? So on the weekends, you want to loosen up. Some people will do like they'll be really diligent with their fasting, let's say Monday through Friday afternoon, and then they kind of ease into the week and do whatever they want. That's fine too. But again, think of this is not to become your life. This is to enhance your life.
That's a good way to think of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love grapes. I just like them liquefied in a glass.
You can do that. Hey, yeah. If you get a drink, obviously wine is probably the most healthy thing.
It's grapes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you the harder liquor you get into, that the obviously the more strain it's gonna put. But there's even like a lot of cool things about beer. Like if you're having stuff in that percentage alcohol range, there are benefits to it too, in my opinion. And there's studies that smash, they're going to pay a price for it. You know, and again, that's something different. You know, that's that
Right.
happens in there, but
It's I'm starting to try and focus on the sugar content of stuff. You know, just because I know if I have 2 glasses of wine, I'm not, you know, on a Friday night, Saturday morning's tough. I'm going to be looking for food.
sure.
So it just triggers all sorts of weird things in my body.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna drink, it will
Saturday.
be on Saturday nights, not Friday nights, because then I won't be able to do my workout.
All right. Well, I am going to sign off.
Okay.
I thank you so much for the information, and I'm sure there'll be lots more questions in the coming days.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm around. You know, you
All right,
guys.
thanks,
let me know,
Kyle.
let Dana
It was
know.
really
Yeah.
nice to see so many people out there tonight.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
That was really
Yeah.
cool.
Happy for you guys.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.